Goedemiddag. Je kan me nog steeds horen? Ik hoor jou alleen niet.
Ja, dat kwam omdat ik op mute
Op zich was dat logisch. Helemaal goed.
Hello.
Hello.
Hallo.
Is your screen sharing still working, Telly? Oh.
Would you like me to give it a try?
Yeah, go ahead. Perfect.
Yes.
See more and more people coming in.
The boss is there.
Good afternoon.
Hello, Jeroen.
Let's wait a couple more minutes for people that aren't as punctual. And welcome to everyone that's already present. I think there's about 20 people now. There will probably be a couple more people coming in, but let's get started. Pierre, do you want to take the lead?
Yes, sure. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
So we can start. Maybe we can start with the slides. Daily. Welcome everyone to this webinar about the patient's perspective on the sustainability of Bigpicture. My name is Pierre Moulin, and it's my pleasure to welcome today Ruud de Jong, who is representing a patient advocacy group, Living with Hope. It's an institute from the Netherlands, and Ruud will provide his patient's perspective on what we're trying to achieve. Another patient representative, John Hoagland, was scheduled to be with us today. Unfortunately, due to unforeseen circumstances, he won't be able to participate to this discussion. John is a patient representative at the Dutch MPN Foundation, where he's acting as chair. The webinar today will be, thank you for the next slide. This webinar will cover first some background information on Bigpicture. We know that there are many attendees outside of the inner Bigpicture circle, but you're all part of the wider Bigpicture community, and this is really cool to have you here today with us. So I'll give you some background information such that everybody is on board with what we're or on the same page with what we're trying to achieve. Then we'll go through several questions with Ruud, and at the end, towards the end of the webinar, we will open the floor for more interaction and Q&A with the audience. So as I mentioned in the intro, what we are here for today is to hear the patient's perspective on the value of the personal health data we will host in the Bigpicture platform. Bigpicture is an IMI project funded by the EU and the FPA. Its goal is to create a platform that will host 3 million digital slides to accelerate research in computational pathology. The digital slides are established by the digitalization of tangible of glass slides, as we use them for diagnostic at the hospital, or that the colleagues in the industry are using to evaluate the effect of drugs on animal tissues. The digital slides contain data and other information about the individual. It contains information about the disease, and it can be used to analyze the disease, but also find digital biomarkers and refine diagnostic and prognostic information. So when 3 million, sorry, there is some echo. Someone is trying to say something. I assume not. When the 3 million slides are collected on the platform, this represents a huge amount of information that can help develop research that foster better analysis and better prognostic tools for a wide diversity of pathological conditions. Next slide, please. The Bigpicture is articulated around a community, or is constructed through a community of beneficiaries of the consortium, but expanding also, as I mentioned, I alluded to in the beginning, goes beyond the group of beneficiaries, but extends to a wider community comprising biobanks, the clinical pathologists, small and medium enterprises, startups active in AI, especially in computational pathology, representative of the public, and also health authorities, government organization, and pharmaceutical industries, especially those covered in the EFPA, their European overarching organization, researchers, scientists active in AI, especially computational pathology, CROs providing services for clinical trials or non-clinical safety studies, and also a series of companies of mid-size that are active in the health business. Next one, please. The Bigpicture platform is built on 4 use cases or 4 functionalities that create a a dynamic interaction between several of these stakeholders. We envisage the platform to be there to allow data download, to develop, so download of virtual slides, to develop algorithms, bringing algorithms to the platform such that they can be run on slides contained on the platform, hosted on the platform, and the user would receive the results back. We could also use this platform to make algorithms and models available to the community for download, and also the possibility that users would upload their slides and receive the results from some of the algorithms that are running on the platform. And this requires that we have a continuous interaction between those who are providing slides, providing algorithms and using them. It also creates a circle, a circle of virtue that promotes research, that improves the evaluation of safety studies, the diagnostic for patients, improve the access to innovative medicines, and reduce the costs. And this relies on the contribution of data, of annotations, and algorithm by the community. On the next slide, please. One element of Bigpicture is the sustainability program. Of course, this current IMI funded project is bound in time. In 2027, the funded action will be over, and we want that this platform remains available for the widest, the benefit of the broadest community, and also is able to keep up with the fast developments in computational pathology, keep growing, and keep providing services. So typically, the IMI projects are separated into work packages. Each of them performs specific tasks, and we are talking now as part of the work package 6 that's tasked with ensuring that the platform continues to fulfill its objective after the end of the funded action. The activities of this work package 6 include interacting with different stakeholders, and you've seen us running stakeholder surveys, and today this is one of these where we are bringing the patient perspective through one patient advocate to better understand how the patients see the value and what patients are ready to do or to see being done with their data to promote the development of innovative diagnostics. And so with this introduction, which I hope was concise and clear enough, I would now switch to the second part. And Ruud, welcome again.
Thank you.
I will now ask you, or as we discussed already, it would be cool if you could tell us about your experience as a patient or a patient relative, and what the patient journey meant for you.
Yes. So let me do a quick introduction. My name is Ruud de Jonge. I'm based in the Netherlands. I'm the secretary of a patient group, which is called Living with Hope. And that's a patient society specifically for people who are suffering from pancreatic cancer, which is quite a nasty form of cancer because the actual survival rates are fairly limited. On average, after receiving the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, the chances of a patient to survive the next 5 years are approximately 5%, which means is that it's a quite a drastic disease. Personally, I got involved here because my My wife was diagnosed with pancreatic cancer in 2017, and she actually passed away in 2019 as a result of that diagnosis. And of course, that has had a big impact on my personal life, on my surroundings, on my kids, and anything that's valuable to her, to you. It also meant that I actually started doing something else and made a career switch, because up until that time, I was working for a big IT company, an American-based software company called Microsoft, probably familiar to most of you. And I was working in the area of partner solutions and focusing a lot on machine learning and artificial intelligence, which makes this quite an interesting combination to have this discussion today. And as part of my new focus on life, I actually made a career switch. So you see from the background picture of my team side that I'm working for an organization which is called Parkhuis, which is totally not translatable into to English. But that's an informal care center for people who have received the cancer diagnosis. And what we offer is we offer contacts of people who are peer contacts, who are in the same set, who have reached, got a similar message and are in need for peer contact, and that's what we facilitate. And also, as part of this work, since just over a year, I'm now also aligned with Living with Hope and adding part of my both personal history and experience, but also part of my professional experience in actually setting up an organization which caters around the needs of patients. And that's what my purpose is in life. And that's how I spend my daytime working hours. And as a side note, in the evening hours, I'm active as a local politician and a member of the city council in my hometown. But that's totally irrelevant for this specific topic. So that's me. And I was actually approached by Bigpicture in a more broader discussion and thinking about, hey, what do you think about the Bigpicture solution, and how does it relate to you? Yeah, and for me, of course, it pressed several buttons, both as a technology geek and enthusiast person around machine learning and everything we can do there. But also I saw a tremendous benefit for the patients we care so much about, because we can still improve a lot on diagnosis and actually speeding up to make sure that we have the correct treatment of people across the country. And that's my personal interest here.
Thank you very much for sharing this. And I guess now, because of your background, and we have discussed also several times what Bigpicture is about. Could you? I have a couple of questions now, really related to your perception of the Bigpicture, the value of Bigpicture. Maybe if you could elaborate on the value of the sharing platforms in general for patients, what the perceived healthcare benefits, and also if you could also elaborate on the what motivates a patient to contribute to this healthcare platform.
Yep. And I think there are several aspects, of course, to this and angles towards this question. I think from a patient perspective, there is still quite a strong need to improve on the diagnosis around your particular situation when you have a cancer diagnosis. Let's take pancreatic cancer as an example. when you get the diagnosis of pancreatic cancer, roughly 20% of the people can be eligible for a surgical operation, and which is called a Whipple operation, where they remove part of the pancreas and do all kinds of new plumbing inside of you, just to make sure that you have a better prospect of living longer. It adds probably just over a year to your life expectation. So that's the hard truth, but it is what it is. But only 20% of the patients qualify from this. And what happens is that of those 20%, nearly half of the surgical procedures are being stopped midway because they find stuff they could not see that well on all kinds of pictures and x-rays and whatever, and which is a big problem because you operate twice as many people than you actually would be sensible to do, but also for the person who undergoes such a surgery and they have to roll back in there is they can only make that decision when the patient is literally wide open and on the operating table, and that will of course also have an impact on the health and the stability of the patient. So any improvement, how small it could be in the diagnosis phase and the analytical phase based on the individual CT scans or MRIs, will have an enormous impact, of course, on the individual patients. And that's why I'm so enthusiastic about this one. Is because it could bring up our diagnosis, but also the projection of will an operation be a success to a different level, and that has a tremendous impact, of course, because you can much better treat people. You avoid dragging people into a kind of a goose chase because the operation could not be successful anyway, and you also prevent and medical how do you call it, recovery time because of the failed operation. So I think that makes sense. The challenge is what's in it for the individual patient to donate his pictures or his material. At that time, I don't think there is much benefit there, because I don't think that contribution of your individual situation will actually improve your own case, but it will improve, I think, the all-up quality of the system of Bigpicture. So it's a kind of an altruistic fact that you donate to the good and you benefit from the donations of others by raising the bar on the system. And I think that's where the patients' organizations could play a role in actually saying, well, it's a kind of a donor codicil, which we have here in the Netherlands, where you donate your tissue after you passed away. You do not benefit from the fact that you personally anymore that you donate those tissues, but you make sure that other people benefit. And I think that's, to me, and I'm thinking about this example on the fly, by the way, but I think it's quite a similar situation here.
Yes, thanks a lot. When we are talking about sharing data and using patient data in the for research, of course, there is an aspect of privacy. So what I want to ask you now is, when in this altruistic impetus to share your data, what are the conditions? What do patients expect from organizations such as the one we're building, sharing data, what are the conditions we should put in place? What we would like to see? How do you think about what do you think about the confidentiality and the privacy aspect in general of that? And maybe if you could elaborate on your perception of the GDPR, so the privacy regulations and data sharing regulations.
Yep.
I think this would be beneficial for this.
Yeah,
If
and I think it's a very important topic to discuss, because when you donate your data, you have to be sure that you are not in no way negatively influenced by the fact that you've donated your individual data. And of course, for the training purposes, it's important that you see the raw material and the confirmed diagnosis, because it gives you a solid path between the data and the conclusion, and that's something you need to train the models. But actually, the personal identifiable information, which is very important in the GDPR, should not play a role at all here, because the only thing you could maybe do is utilize some more generic statements about the individual person, like gender or age or whatever. But as soon as it becomes really personal identifiable information, we are in the wrong way, and we are going into the wrong way, and that should be absolutely clear up front, also as part of I think the PR, but also part of the actual agreement, that that it's not possible to reverse engineer the identity of the individual patient based on the information that was shared. And I think that's, to me, that's really clear, and I understand, of course, the technical viability of that to be done. I'm not sure if that's an easy story to the generic public. And of course, in this country, we had a lot of discussions around a national register of patients, etc., where all doctors and medical institutions contribute, but also could actually utilize this. And there was a lot of debate about the privacy aspects around this one. And I think my personal learning there is that we took it, we did not take it too seriously, and that's the reason why it failed. So yes, privacy should be a main concern, but it should also be a very clear story, and that there is no way that if you contribute your data, that we can reverse engineer your data back to you. And that, to me, is a main topic, and I think it's. I'm very sure that will be a big requirement for patients' organizations like Living with Hope going forward.
Yes, thank you. Now, I guess one of the you were mentioning better diagnosis and improve patient care. All these improvements are stemming on research, but at some point need some kind of commercial, some kind of commercial implications. The diagnostic tests are used, the tools that are used in radiology or in computational pathology. These are brought by and of course, when it's about data sharing, there is also a commercial implication, because all these fantastic researchers, most of the Bigpicture beneficiaries and all other organizations in the world are developing, at some point come with some kind of commercialization. So how do you feel about this need for the commercial valorization? I think it's important that we hear also your side, the patient side. Yep. And of course, commercial is not all bad. So there are different types of revenues that can be generated.
Yep.
And I think it could be very important for this group. How you see acceptable ways of generating revenues, access fees, or whichever thing you can think of.
Yep.
And maybe also share with us your preferences or concerns about if there are any about the type of project you would see, you would favor your data to be used for versus others. Try to help us understand where the line is from your perspective.
Yep. Yeah, that and I think that's a good one. And the first off, I think my statement is that of course the commercial use of data, but also of equipment, is actually driving innovation. So when you get a CT scan, you go into a big Philips machine. And of course, Philips makes money in selling CT equipment all over the world, and they do this quite successfully. And we all see the benefits of the fact that actually Philips makes money out of this, is because they innovate a lot and make those things smaller, cheaper, and also more accessible to a lot of folks. So the fact that there is a commercial business model behind some of this is not a bad thing, because it can drive innovation. And I think the same is true for solutions like Bigpicture, is where to make it actually requires a big investment to create value here, because you have to create a vast data collection. You need to you need to invest in processing power. You need to invest in intelligence, and you need to invest and actually you need to pay for the people who are providing the intelligence you need around these models. So yes, it has a value, and when it has a value, it's also reasonable that a price is being paid. Of course, we all object, or most of folks object to some of the price gouging which is happening across the medical industry. Like a famous example is the insulin prices in the US, etc., where they are much higher than any other areas based on specific regulations. I think a fair price from a patient perspective is more than reasonable, because it needs an investment actually to create the infrastructure. At the same time, and maybe that's part of my side job as a politician, which comes through, is that it should not result into excess profits. And if there are nice profits, they should be, in my perspective, reinvested into the system just to drive innovation. And if that's the case, we all benefit. And I think we benefit from a patient organization, but you also benefit from an initiative like Bigpicture, because it has to be commercially sustainable, to provide a long-term viable solution. And let's not underestimate this and how much time that could actually take. So yes, I'm of course in an ideal world everything is for free, but that doesn't work in this way. So a commercial valorization of solutions like this is more than useful.
I'm sorry. In terms of activity, so let's assume that Bigpicture at some point generates revenues through several mechanisms. Where is there a difference? Where is the difference between projects or utilization of these funds that are acceptable or encouraged from the patient side, from your side personally, versus others? Where really would you draw the line?
Yeah, I think we should look at this in how you look at the patient journey. So as soon as you get ill, you go for a diagnosis, you go into a kind of a medical trajectory where, of course, more traditional diagnosis is being made, but also costs are incurred in setting you up the most efficient way in moving forward through your treatment phase. I don't think that big picture is anything different here. It is because you utilize a service, you improve the value and the quality of the healthcare, and that has an intrinsic value, and that intrinsic value should be covered by payments and also by costs that are actually being charged to your, in my case, my insurance company, because yeah, of course, we are very well insured on this, but we all pay collectively a contribution for this. And I don't think it should actually be anything different there. This is that I think it should benefit initiatives like Bigpicture when you have and a kind of consistent thinking around this one. And to me, the consistent thinking is that it's not that different than an traditional way of providing healthcare, but it's more technology based and more AI and machine learning based. But I think that in all aspects of our lives going forward, we will start seeing the impact of those models popping up. If it's from Chat GPT, which is actually helping my oldest daughter to write her thesis, and I've not said that publicly, but to all kinds of other stuff like my Tesla learning and what the most efficient ways is to drive around my hometown, and it's all part of machine learning, and we benefit from the services there.
Yes, I guess. Well, thanks for this. I guess when we are under the big picture sustainability plan,
Pierre, I lost you just for a couple of seconds. So can you please repeat the question?
Yes. What I was saying is that when we think about the sustainability of big picture, we are thinking in terms of providing services that can help us generating revenues to maintain and develop the platform, support research. And if I got you right here, this is the kind of utilization of the financial benefits that would be totally agreeable from a patient perspective. Huh?
Yes, yeah, I agree. If it has value, it needs to have a good price, and the price should be based. And of course, a margin is part of the price, and the margin should be good enough for people to actually willing to invest in the solution. And it should also drive next version and innovation. And if that's the case, I think we are more than happy as a patients organization to support that.
Yes, thank you. Well, thanks. I think we are towards the end of this structured conversation. It was great to hear from you. Maybe we can go to the next slide. So as I mentioned at the beginning, we were supposed to be 3 in this conversation. We are only 2. We run prior to this webinar a series of interviews that capture the patient's perspective, and this slide you see now is summarizing what we heard from the patients, that we have a potential to enable the development of better diagnostic tools, better diagnosis, and foster the development of prognosis factor. You mentioned this for the surgery, interrupted surgery in Whipple's, etc. This is really relevant. We heard also that privacy is critical, and we may walk a fine line when we want to we want to share as much patient data that's as needed to the development of efficient, effective tools, as long as they are centered on the patient outcome. We also understand that there is a commercial aspect to the development of this tool. I think the examples you provided with the CT scan, it's great. It really tells it all. And what came also through this conversation and our previous conversation is that it's important that the data is available for a broader community and without exclusive license. This is for the community. If someone takes the data and makes something good out of it, it has to be open to others to do the same. The data is what we discussed also is that the data should be shared in the perspective of the greater good, and as we concluded the previous conversation, if profits are generated, which is something that's recognized as a necessity, the funds have to be channeled towards allocations or allocated to activities that help the further development of these more accurate diagnosis and prognosis factors. I think this is concluding this part of the session, and I think Paul and Deli, we can open the floor for questions from the audience. Were there any questions already posted in the chat, or so it's open? Please raise your hand, maybe for to get a bit organized. If you have questions, please raise your hand.
There's no questions in the chat, in case you're wondering.
Thank you. So I see one hand raised.
Yes, I have a question. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Perfect. Are you considering to involve, let's say you get a project requesting access to so many images, to involve in the committee that takes the decision a patient or a citizen, like for the future? Because generally, let's say also ethics committee, they rarely have a patient or a citizens sitting in them. Also that in that case, the patients are also involved in taking the decision who shall have access to this data.
Yeah, it would be great. I think there are two aspects to that. First, we have a mechanism that involves data access committees that are professionalized. They will have to review all the request one by one. The other aspect to that is that we have a ethics advisory board and a multi-stakeholder advisory board. And it's probably this place where the patient voice is most useful, but I'm really happy to hear from Ruud what he thinks about that. So this is the current plan. The data access committee professionalized and advisory boards where we include patients. But challenge me on that, Ruud.
No, and I think you hit the nail on the head in this case. So the role we play as a kind of a patients organization is that we are the voices of the individuals. So I'm personally now involved in a discussion with the Dutch government about centralization of cancer care in less hospitals than we have right now. and with the aim of and improving the all-up volume in the centers that are left, and but also, yeah, having quite a big impact on people who are living in a more, I would say, far away area in our country, because their travel time will probably increase based on the specialization of that care. And it's quite a fine line in how you deal with this. And of course, there are a lot of people involved in that discussion, and we are actually the patients' voices here. And that's the role I think the patients' organization should play, also in these kinds of discussions. This is going to be quite a challenge, because in the Netherlands there are 18 patients organizations who all have are specialized in a specific form of cancer. I talk with a lot of them, but the general understanding of machine learning and artificial intelligence is relatively low still in that area, specifically because, most of the people in the patients organizations are they've had the disease themselves, but they are more and how do you call this? There are based on their own personal experience, but not on specific IT or machine learning or AI knowledge. And that's an interesting combination we see happening. But I still think that those patients organizations should be actually representing the voice of those patients collectively.
Yes, thanks. And I hope with the construct I mentioned, we are on good track with that. Thank you. Other questions?
I see Jeroen raised his hand.
Okay, shoot.
Yeah, thanks. I think very good session. Very good to hear this perspective. Ruud, I was wondering, it's associated with the previous topic. What kind of information do you feel that patients would need? So how can we better inform them? Is it, what is the type of information they would need? And also, I find even through the patient organizations, it's often not easy to reach people. Do you have any thoughts on how it would be easier for us to reach patients, not just, let's say, the individual patient, but also larger groups of patients?
Yep. That's a good question. I think the first thing is what type of information should we do is, I think we should have information available about what we're trying to achieve with initiatives like Bigpicture, who are consumer ready. And not because I underestimate the intelligence of the average consumer, but I think when I talk in my surroundings around machine learning and artificial intelligence, I see a lot of blank faces, and saying, "What bleep are you talking about? And can you explain this into more?" In a more simple way, and it's similar. If you talk to me about nuclear physics, I'm very much interested, but I don't know enough of it actually to have a detailed discussion. So that's one. And the second part is working through the patients' organizations to talk to individual patients. That's sometimes quite a challenge. Specifically. In my case, the average, it's a little, it's a very harsh statement, but 50% doesn't survive the first 3 months after the diagnosis, which means is that the amount of time you actually have is to build up the interaction with the individual patients for us. The chances are fairly low. So what we focus on as a patient organization is that we have excellent static information around this disease, and we have moderated and distinct forums on, for instance, Facebook, where people share their information and questions. The challenge there is that the cycle I see is that people say, hey, they go into panic mode. I've got the diagnosis. I need the information. And then you see some questions happening. And then 3 to 4 months later, on average, you get a kind of a post saying, well, okay, I'm leaving because, yeah, I've reached my final stage. But that's not true for other patients organizations who have a very active and very successful recovery rate, and where you see that you can actually build a relationship through the patient's organization and the two individual patients. And I think that it differs a lot for my target group or for my patients and type. It's actually very difficult to build that relationship. Yep. And that's sometimes a harsh realization. And because even with those newcomers on those moderated groups, yeah, you can actually a little bit project how the next couple of months will look like for them, because we've seen it multiple times happening. But for the individual patients, unfortunately, it's a new journey.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes, thank you.
I think there's one question in the chat, but that's more, yeah, that's less related to this topic, but maybe Pierre can briefly answer. It's, where can I find information about Bigpicture's thoughts on requesting and granting data access?
So we have work ongoing currently to set up the access. So for people outside of the inner circle, be patient. We'll communicate about that soon. Any other questions? It's a unique opportunity, I would say, to have such a thorough conversation about patient perspective with someone who understands the technology aspects as well. So please don't be shy.
And of course, feel free to reach out to me directly. My name is linked in also in the LinkedIn announcement of this session, so yeah, you can also always reach out to me directly. Also, no problem.
Or to the Bigpicture.
Absolutely.
The Bigpicture group.
Yeah.
If you have afterthoughts, oh, I should have asked this one. Catherine, yes, shoot.
Yes, well, first off, Ruud, I'd like to thank you very much for your for giving your perspective in this audience, so eloquently voiced. And also, we've had discussions with data contributors, mostly pathologists or people working in a pathology lab, and so they sometimes feel they need to hear things firsthand, and we offer them the transcripts. So also this conversation will be transcribed and will be available on our SharePoint for the beneficiaries of the project. Yep. So in that way you can learn the details of what has been discussed today.
Excellent.
Yes, and to echo Catherine, I think what I've Catherine again?
Nope.
Okay. You know, we've gone through a lot of discussions internally with colleagues. Also, as we are all in the field of computational pathology, more or less, we have this conversation also outside of the Bigpicture community, the inner Bigpicture community, with ethics committees, etc. And you know, sometimes I meet researchers or I meet ethics committee, they say, well, think about the privacy first. And we are, you know, sometimes in these situations where we say, well, there's a significant benefit to develop or to run this research or to develop this tool. So what do you have a message for these colleagues who are insecure about where to draw the line?
Yeah, I'm a little bit selfish here because it's for me the value. I see huge potential and the value is there. So don't underestimate talking about value. Also, so if you focus too much upfront on the privacy aspect, and of course it's important, but it will control it will control the discussion, and I think it could be a potential shame in making in letting this dominate the discussion. So yes, we have so much improvement to do. Thinking back around my personal situation where my wife was being operated and they had to abandon after 6 hours the surgical procedure. That's where the pain is. That's where the pain is for the patients. And that should be the lead-in of the discussion in how we improve our diagnostics capability. And yes, that means is that you contribute something from your data, just like a donor codicil, but that's what the value is.
Yes, thank you very much. It was really great to have you with us today, Ruud.
Welcome.
I think, Paul, the concluding or the housekeeping remarks for the end of this webinar are with you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you very much as well, Pierre and Ruud, for I think a very interesting and stimulating session. Yeah, for the attendance as well concerning the future webinars. So these webinars take place monthly on Friday from 3 to 4. It depends a bit on the topic whether we extend it to external parties outside of Bigpicture as well. And a new webinar series is being planned for February and March. But this is still being planned. If you're a Bigpicture partner and you want to host a webinar like this, you can reach out to pmo@bigpicture.eu. I think that wraps it up. Thank you all for attending.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
That was really good, Ruud. Thank you so much.
You're more than welcome.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks a lot. It was great.
Yeah, thank you.
Really.
And it was nice to do. So it's good to think about those questions. So always good.
Yeah.
And if there's anything else I can do in the future for you, don't hesitate to reach out.
Don't say that.
No, but
Well, there, you gave us one lead in your reply to the question: how can we connect with patients and hear their perspective? And you said, well, you know, most of them are not really familiar with machine learning and all that.
Yeah.
So you need to have a sort of translation.
Yeah.
Sort of easy language. So we can think of, you know, communications that we think is easy, but we probably will need to proofread it.
Absolutely.
Well,
yeah, and reach out.
This one was.
I'm more than happy to contribute because, even also in my patients organization, I have sufficient folks who are not that IT savvy. Let's put it this way. And if we can make it understandable for them, yeah, that would be a good benefit. So
that's a very good point. I used to emphasize the need for the pathologist to understand the AI aspects, but this one you mentioned was a blind spot to me. Yes, of course we need. Well, now it's obvious.
yeah, absolutely.
We need to explain that people are not afraid of the black box, that will see things that they don't want to show, and these kind of things. Yes. Good.
Absolutely.
Very good. Hey,
okay.
Have a great weekend.
Thank you. Enjoy your weekend and talk to you later. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you so much. Bye.